resistor, diode, bank of scary high voltage capacitors, sketchy homemade power supply aptly named Adele
The
Dazeem.
talented one and only Adele Dazeem.
What do these all have in common? You see, before I got into the wacky world of computers like you see behind me, I was an electronics nerd. And not really an electrical engineer. No, I didn't engineer stuff, but I sure ended up having fun. And I want to keep having fun, and I want to share that fun with you. So today we're going to go over organizing my electronics setup. We're going to mount a computer to my electronics desk, and finally I'll be able to get into some very interesting circuit design. So stay tuned for all of that. So the first thing that I needed to do was to get all of my tools, cables, wires, components, yada yada organized. I actually did this a couple months ago. You'll notice that the Thomas in the video has a mustache still. Rest in peace. Anyways, let's watch old Thomas go. Whoa, look at all those cables on the ground. Oh man. Well, all right, here's the thing. I organized them kind of into piles here, and then just use cable ties and stuff like that to wrap them up nicely. And the basic process that I'm following here is I'm just putting them into labeled bags. And you'll see in the back by my shoe rack, there's a very cheap plastic set of drawers. And that's pretty much where I'm putting all these cables. And for the most part, they fit, but I did have to put some of the cables elsewhere. But that's done, and old Thomas is so happy he's gonna do a twirl for you. Look at him go. Wow, look at him go. And then the next step was to just take stock of what all I had on the desk that needed to be organized. In this case, I just kind of got plastic bins that I took back from university and have kept around for all this time, and they are so disorganized and so messy, so I'm trying to get them organized as much as I can here, and then afterwards I'll move on to the specific components that I can put in this storage rack. So as you can see, I have quite a number of electronic components here, and sorting them was no simple task, but I started with the resistor because it's the most daunting. There are so many individual values for resistors. You'll notice I have the handy dandy color code chart up there on the wall because I did not deal with memorizing it, and I probably won't ever. I mean, I know there's little things you can use to memorize, but you know what? You know what? That's fine. It's cool. It's art. It's decorative. Anywho, the way that I went about sorting these resistors into such a small storage bin is that I basically used that third band, the multiplier band, and I sorted by decimal place. So for example, I put 1 ohm resistors all the way to 8.2 ohm resistors in the first bin. Then I moved on to 10 ohm resistors all the way to 82 ohm resistors into the second bin, so on and so forth, all the way until I got to 1 mega ohm resistors, which are pretty much the largest resistance resistors that I have personally. But with all of that done, that pretty much marks the end of actually organizing the desk. So you notice the desk looks already a lot better. I have, handy dandy Adele Dazeem already on the desk. It's still kind of messy, but all of this stuff is organized. And look at this monitor. I mean, oh, beautiful. And I have this guy. Look, he's like mounted there. Oh, it's perfect. The leads just come right off. Don't touch the desk. Wow. That's next. It's now time to mount the PC. And I took it completely apart to clean it and stuff like that. And now I have to put it back together. So I think this is the perfect time for a build montage. And who doesn't like a build montage, right? And with a little bit of stretching, it's time to go to work. So now that the PC is built up, let's go over the specs. First up, the CPU is an Intel i3 4340 54 watt TDP CPU. 54 watts is perfect for the Noctua NHL9i low profile cooler. It's perfect in the 2 chassis because even with the lid on, there's still a good 1 or 2 inches of clearance for airflow. Which is helped by the pair of Noctua Redux 80mm fans in the front. It's sitting on a Griffin Z87 motherboard from Asus, so it runs on the Z87 chipset. And I have 16 gigabytes of DDR3 2666 megahertz RAM, as well as a very low profile and pretty low powered NVIDIA GT 1030. Since this is not really going to be a workhorse PC, graphics don't matter so much, but I did want to get the DisplayPort output of the GPU that I can use for the monitor that I'm using in there. So I also have 2 hard drives in this machine. The idea here is just I'm very indecisive, and while at the moment I want to use this PC as just another workstation, I may change my mind eventually and decide to run VMware ESXi. So in that case, one would be a boot drive for ESXi, and then the other would be a data store for my VMs. And then something quite peculiar about this PC is the optical drive. And believe it or not, in my entire fleet of computers and servers in this apartment, this would be my only optical drive, which can come in handy at times. You would think that, oh, but your servers have optical drives. No, they don't, because I have replaced all of the optical drives in my servers with optical drive to SSD little kind of adapters, because I boot my servers off of those instead of using the RAID arrays and stuff like that. So, optical drive. And then finally, the power supply. This is a 300 watt SFX power supply for Be Quiet, and like the name implies, it's very quiet. Because this case kind of has a standard ATX mount, I have this little ATX to SFX bracket. And then in the case of airflow, I keep the fan here in the front, in the top, not only because there's a vent right here built into the lid of the case, but also because there's, again, airflow clearance, and the idea is that these 2 fans in the front will create enough static pressure that there's always going to be fresh air in the case. So with the PC build complete, it's now time to start thinking about ways to mount it to the desk. My first idea here was to use the table legs as if it were a 2-post rack, and then just mount the PC to the legs. However, the PC is a whole lot narrower than the legs are, so that's just not going to work. My second idea was to take the PC and mount it vertically and just build out the desk a little bit on the side so I can almost slot the PC in from the top, but I immediately saw a problem with that option. My third idea was to take the PC vertically again, but underneath the desk, and use one of the rack ears, mount it to the steel frame of the desk, and then just in the back of the PC, kind of use a block or something, and then screw from the PC and then above from the desk to support it in the rear. And that sounds cool. I could even use one of those screws as a grounding rod, just have like a little touch point to make sure I'm not statically charged before I work on something. But the case is already so mangled and deformed from tons of builds that have gone into it in the past, and then just honestly throwing it around, like especially when I was moving, that I don't want to deform it anymore. Doing that would mean I have to put screws through the PC case, and I don't want to deal with that. So the fourth option is to get one of those little like underneath the desk rack mount doohickeys.
This one, this right here, this one, right there, that one.
And then just mount the PC to that. And this is cool because it's, I think, a little bit of future proofing. Like, let's say I got some kind of rack mount function generator or some kind of rack mount oscilloscope that plugs up to the computer. Like, those are cool, they exist. If I had one of those, I could just also mount it to that rack. And that'd be so cool. It'd be so compact, so clean. I think this is what I'm gonna go for. And it is the weekend. I could get started on this project right now, but I'm going to Dallas for a week. Bye. Alright, I'm back, and conveniently while I was away, the desk rack mount thing arrived, so let's go set it up. The plan is to get the PC under the desk, probably on this side here, so it's underneath all my storage with the rack, so it's probably gonna do something like that. And I thought about time-lapsing that process, but I'd rather just go and it's done. Now I know what you might say. Oh geez, is that really going to be strong enough to hold up an entire PC and then maybe whatever else goes in there? Look at that. It doesn't move an inch. It doesn't budge. It's in there. It's in there. And it's because of these bad boys. These are carriage nuts that go right through the desk. And of course you might think, oh, that's going to be kind of annoying having that there, but it's kind of why I chose carriage nuts, where it doesn't really like hurt you if you like rub up against it. And also this kind of doubles as I'll ground the chassis here so I can have like a little bit of like I'm touching ground, like just right there on the desk when I'm working on stuff that's sensitive to ESD. And then on the front of the rack, I just have a couple, like 4 or so really like kind of small 1/2-inch wood screws that go right into the desk. So that's not going anywhere. Anyways, I'm just really happy with the way this turned out. So the only step that's left is just getting Ubuntu installed. So now you can really begin to see the value of having a computer at my electronics workbench. I'm working on something, uh-oh, I don't know how to do something, what do I do? Oh, boom, data sheet right there. I couldn't be happier. And I'm also excited because now with a really nicely organized electronics desk, I can get to some very wacky, wonderful electronics projects. Like, I was gonna end the video saying, oh, look, I'm so happy how clean my desk is, but clearly it's not very clean. That's because I've been working on something. And I won't tell you what yet, but here's a hint. Lots of power, and it needs cooling. And maybe it involves an IRF Z44N MOSFET. I don't know. So thanks for joining me on this organizational journey. I sure had a lot of fun, and as it turns out, this video stuff, it's actually kind of fun, so I do intend to do more of it. And I've also caved, so I've done the social media thing with the Instagram, the Twitter, links for all of that's going to be in the description. I even set up a Patreon because, as it turns out, tech is expensive, so if you are able to, take care of yourself, take care of your family, take care of your friends first, but if you're able to, the support would help. So that's it. I'll see you in the next shocking episode. Namaste. Oh man, that is a soggy computer. Ooh. Why did I do that?